Up next is our panel discussion, DISHA Live, a mentoring odyssey for entrepreneurs. DISHA is a mentorship initiative which is designed to help the SMEs to move to the next orbit for their growth. The objective of DISHA is to aid the growth of SMEs by leveraging the power of mentorship by industry experts. Our next session will give SME founders an exposure and opportunity to interact and get perspective on business dilemmas they face in their operations and upscaling with the business. Let me welcome our esteemed panelists for this session. Mr. Sanjiv Mital, who is a founder of Saarathi Enterprises. After spending 20 years in IT corporate sector in companies like IPM, Wipro, Mr. Mittal got into entrepreneurship by doing management buyout of Bharti Telesoft, which later became Mahindra Comwell. He worked in Government of India as CEO of National Institute of Smart Government in the e-governance space. Now he is an angel investor and a mentor to startups. Saarathi Enterprise is a mentoring venture as well. The second panelist for the session will be Pravin Bolar, who is the founder and CEO of vBridge Hub. Pravin comes with 3 decades of IT experience by having worked in leadership roles on both buy side with companies like DHL, Honeywell, and the sell side with companies like Infosys, Tech Mahindra. He has extensive global experience working in US, Middle East, Europe, and APAC regions. He is currently challenging himself and his team at vBridge Hub to transform the IT sector outsourcing experience through B2B marketplace. The session will be moderated by Avinash Sethi, co-founder InfoBeans Technologies, with over 23 years experience as a co-founder of InfoBeans. Avinash has led the software services business growth and expansion across various domains and geographies. Avinash serves as a NASCOM SME chairperson for Madhya Pradesh as well. With a robust skill set that includes leadership, marketing management, technology, software projects, strategic partnerships, merger and acquisitions, and more, Avinash Sethi contributes valuable insights to the industry. He is a fitness enthusiast, loves reading on diverse subjects, photography, cycling, and running. Please join me in welcoming Avinash Sethi, Sanjiv Mital, and Pravin Bolar to the stage.
Thank you, Shobit, and very warm welcome to all of you from Indore and MP. How many of you are founders, CXOs, co-founders of your companies? Okay, just 25% of the audience. Okay, so this session is meant for founders and CTOs and CXOs of the business, trying to understand how we take the business to the next level, how do we go to the next orbit, and what are the growth challenges. So what we did was we invited questions from the founders of the participants here and tried to categorize them into broad areas. A lot of you have shared your questions, so thank you very much for that. Let me also tell you that the DISHA program, this is a live session that we are doing here. We also have a DISHA mentorship program, which is a 3-month program for founders. You can apply with Amita or Jagrati of NASCOM, and you can participate in this DISHA session, where you will be interacting one-on-one with a panel of accomplished founders who are there to help. And I'm very excited and very happy to tell you that Sanjeev is part of the NASCOM mentorship program for almost 15 years. And InfoBeans, the founders of InfoBeans actually sought one-on-one mentorship from NASCOM in 2008-9 time frame, where Sanjeev was also one of the panel members. So it's kind of a, circling back of the program that now I am hosting that session live with you in front of, in my own hometown. So let me, and welcome to Pravin. He is also a mentor in the DISHA online programs that we have. So the first and the foremost question that I have for the panel today is, and let me start with Sanjiv because you are the more experienced person. So typically founders face this challenge as to how do you get long-term contracts, how do you get large companies as your customer, because most of them start their business going on to the freelancing websites or acting as a subcontractors to large companies. So how do you address that bigger challenge to begin with?
This is not an easy question, but I think I'll give you some examples from my journey in entrepreneurship. And currently I am also involved with mentoring several of the organizations that I have invested in. I'm an angel investor. I've invested in about 10, 12 companies and I mentor them, and therefore I see a lot of variety of challenges which these organizations are facing. The first question which you have to ask yourself is, what is it that you are trying to achieve, right? Are you in just a services business? Is it a general purpose services business, which is a Me Too kind of a thing? Is there some specialization? Are you into products? So, just to give you my example, when I did this management buyout of Bharti Telesoft, this was in the year 2001. Initially, it was a software services company in the telecom space. But 2001 was not the right time to be doing software services because that was just after the dot-com crash. The software industry was bleeding. A lot of people were getting laid off. So we decided that software services is not going to give us any great inputs initially. And we got into software products. And I think one of our major realizations, we started building software products for telecom companies. And telecom companies in those days used to be primarily around voice and SMS. We got into the value-added services space, basically helping telecom companies generate revenue from everything beyond a voice call. Messaging, roaming, and mobile information, mobile commerce, all these kind of products. One thing which we realized, and which I think is a very important thing for a lot of people who do business in this space, India is a very good market if you are doing business in India to build your products and to test out some things. You will not make too much of money from India, right? Don't expect that you will get a lot of money, you will get a lot of profits by doing business in India. But Indian customers are fairly tolerant of new kind of products coming in. They are tolerant to things still getting built as they are going along. So you are able to build your products, you're able to perfect your offering, whether it's products or services, by working with the Indian markets. It's a good market to build your products or services, but your money has to come from outside India. That's where you will get valued far more. In our case, we realized that a lot of our business came from the emerging markets, Middle East, Africa, because those countries, Middle East, Africa, Asia, Latin America, these were the countries we went to initially, and they valued a lot of products which we had built for the Indian customers, and we were able to build, we were able to go to them very significantly and made a good success of it. The question which you asked was, how do you reach out to your large customers, right? And from my example, what we did, we realized that since we were working with the telcos globally, we went to these GSM Congress events. Each region used to have GSM Congress events, and these industry-specific events make a huge difference, because if you're in the global market, you can't keep on going to each and every country in Africa or in Middle East or in Asia or USA. You go to these industry events, you meet a lot of people, and you're able to get initial breakthroughs, and that's how we built our initial successes. Does that answer your question?
It actually confuses me more, so I'll ask more questions here, but Pravin, you have any inputs here?
Yeah, so you mentioned about how to get large deals and how do you actually go about, more from a sales perspective, how do you actually get deals, right? I want to ask the audience one question just to gauge what size of organizations they represent here. So how many companies are in revenues that are up to $1 million or 8 crores? Good. How many are in the space of 1 million to 10 million? That's about 80 crores. And how many are more than 10 million? Okay, so I didn't have a lot of hands showing, but at least in all the 3 areas, there were at least a few people. The strategy has to be different. So if you want to go after large deals or go after big deals, one fundamental thing about, I believe we're all services companies here and you're not selling products. And if you are services companies, to win large deals, you have to build trust with the customer. Unfortunately, that's how the services industry works. The customer may have a better supplier with better capability, but if he trusts you and you may be the second best, they will give it to you. So trust is very important, and you'll gain that trust only by going and meeting customers. I think Sanjiv mentioned a very good point. For many of us who are smaller in size, we can't be going around meeting a lot of customers individually. Conferences are a good place to start. I'll give you a example of one of the companies that I actually am mentoring as well on the sidelines of the DISHA program on a personal level. It's a US-based company just focused on services, and we had basically told them, pick a niche. You can either pick a technology niche, or you ride a wave along with an ISV or a CSP, a software vendor so they are focused on NetSuite. And I told them pick a niche in your customer area as well. So they picked up life sciences, and within life sciences, biotech and biopharma. This was a discussion I had with the founder 2 years back when he was just about $1 million. He went from 1 million to 5 million this year, just by staying focused on that. Where did he get his leads? And there are relatively big size leads. He attended all the 3 or 4 life sciences conferences in the US, and he attended 2 NetSuite conferences organized by Oracle. That's all he did. He got all his leads. And they are not small leads. They were decent sized leads, and they gave repeat business. So I agree with Sanjeev, and I've seen this live example as well of this company that has been successful. So 2 things that they did very clearly. One was focused on one area. Instead of saying I do everything, they focused on one area, and now they become specialized in that area. And second, they focused on one particular market segment. So it is important to niche down both on your target market and on your capability. Only then you can stand out. So today, as an example, this year, he's got the NetSuite Life Sciences vertical sales leader reaching out to him when he's talking to customers, because he sees them as a NetSuite partner doing only life sciences. So it can be as simple as that. Obviously, the other big wave, and I think both Akash and Ganesh talked to us about, is the whole Gen I space or AI space. That is another wave that all of you can ride. I'll take a pause here and see if that helps.
So a very important lesson for all of us, focus on niche areas, focus on in terms of technology, focus on niche verticals, and attend those conferences only. So if you look at it, you're choosing your segment, you're choosing your customers, you're choosing your area of operation, and then you're going only using your marketing muscle only in that space. So the outcome is going to be very effective. So that's a very important thing. But what I'm going to ask you is, this leads to another challenge here. We are a small company. You know, if I'm getting a 100K project from XYZ, why would I not do that? How do I refuse that project?
Very tough one.
I think it's a good question. And the most important thing is you have limited resources.
Correct.
You have to know where to deploy your resources. Yes, just because you're getting a 100K project and a lot of your resources start getting deployed there, the focus, your growth segment where you think you're going to be really known for, you're sort of taking away resources from that sector. So at times, you know, it's a very difficult choice to make, but you have to sure, if you have enough resources and you can do that 100K project which is not in the sector which you are really focusing on. If you have extra resources, go ahead. But if you have to pull out from your other, you have to be focused on the sector that you are focusing, that you are trying to grow your business in.
That's a tough call because, I would always have a bench in my business. The 30% population will always be free. And for me, $100K project coming from a large company, even though it is not in the focus areas or now not my technology areas, I would still be tempted to, just, juggle up and collect resources from here and there and then, get into the account because, there's another strategic thing that if I get into a large account, I might be able to, do more things there. So that's very tempting. So I hear you. It is very difficult to do that in the real world. Pravin, what is your experience?
So I'll again take the example of this company I spoke about, who have now become very successful. In the next 2 years, they're looking at getting to 10 million. And he was just talking to me 2 weeks back, and he's saying, I'm getting opportunities in cloud. The same customer, the CIO knows me very well. I've deployed his ERP suite in the life science, it was a biotech company, and wanted to do something on cloud. He said, Pravin, can you help me out? I said, why? So he said, no, I can't do it, but can you do it? So I said, I can do it. He was staying focused. He did not want to get resources and do it himself. So I think as a leader, you have to decide where you're going to put your time and effort. But I think Avinash also brought up a good point. If you have resources sitting idle, doing nothing, rather than just sitting on bench, and if it is a project that can be served by them without putting a significant amount of effort, go ahead and do it only if you need that money. But otherwise, you have to learn to say no. As a culture, unfortunately, a lot of us have this struggle. I had it in my initial years. Even if my boss said something, telling no is always a difficult thing coming from our culture.
But that's a trap, right? You get a project and which is unrelated technologies, unrelated sector, and then it goes well, and then you have it for life. Anyway, so coming back to the marketing side, a lot
I
of
would
people
like to add one more point. At times, these are very serendipitous kind of opportunities. I know one organization which I am an investor in. They got a lead from somewhere which was not, and they were of course a product company, which was not in their key area. They built up that product, and today that has become their flagship business. So it was really serendipity which got them into something.
That is why I said I'm more confused. Coming to the marketing side of it, what is the right pricing? What is my right offering? How do I determine that? How do I choose my markets? And for my size, let's say I'm a $10 million business. Should I go to multiple geographies, multiple markets, multiple offerings? How do I choose the right one?
I think there's no one answer which fits all. Every organization has to look at their business, where their strengths are, which markets, which kind of customers, which kind of sectors, and start building on that. But there's no one right answer that go to this geography or that geography.
So, my take is that every geography has its own nuances. So that means the messaging that you have to make, the pricing, all of that changes. So the question is about bandwidth. Do you have the bandwidth and the money to spend to, if you're doing outbound sales, or field sales, do you have the ability to handle, do you have the bandwidth and the money to spend to handle multiple geographies? If you're at a $10 million. Your best bet is to go after the largest market. And for most of us, US is, and it is proven as well, US is a very large market that can give you a lot of value. So trying to focus on one market, it becomes easier. And then, like I said, narrowing down the segment, because in marketing, the messaging, communicating the message through various channels, whether it is as simple as your website or the LinkedIn post that you make or the collaterals that you develop, it needs a lot of time and effort. You need to get the messaging right. It is very difficult if you generalize yourself and say, I'm going to go after all the industry verticals and I'm going to go after all the geographies. You will have to create a very generic messaging which will make you one of 100,000 suppliers around the world who are SME suppliers. Okay, just remember, I was talking to a CIO about 3-4 months back, And he told me, Pravin, I get calls today, at least 10 calls from founders like yourselves out of Latin America, multiple countries in Latin America, India, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asian countries like Philippines, Vietnam. He said, I get calls almost every other day. How do I know who is good? Everybody says they can do everything. So the point is that when you reach out in your marketing materials, you have to stand out. And the only way you can stand out is if you niche down. Another important thing is talk the language of the customer. That means you need to be domain specific. I keep going back to this example because I want to stick to the same example so you can relate to the multiple facets of the success of that company that I was talking about, life sciences. All his marketing material are around biotech and biopharma and the challenges they face. And there's a very interesting thing that he managed to do also as a founder. Every company that he went in his journey from to 1 million and 1 million now to 5 million is trying to identify white spaces. And I relate to Akash's slides and the messaging that he was giving all of us out here is sit down with your customer and identify what white spaces are there. Now I'll use a term, AI spaces also. What are the AI spaces that are there, right? Because those are the opportunities. So what this gentleman did was he identified one white space. He realized that all biotech companies need this and they're doing it manually. It was something to do with regulatory filing. And every quarter, one or two individuals in the company had to spend 2 weeks to do it, pulling out the data from multiple systems, collating them, and then manually doing all the filings for that regulatory purpose in the biotech space. He automated that, created a product. He did not charge the customer for building that product, the first customer, told them use it free of charge for 1 year. Now he's got a revenue stream from that product, whereas profitability, he says, is 90%. I mean, that's literally, because his cost of, there's hardly any cost. He's already developed it, and it's not a very large product. It is something that every biotech company needs because they need to do it. And what did he do? He identified a white space. So whether it's white space or an AI space, please identify that with your customers. Everyone has got it. It's up to us to use the opportunity in the relationship that we have with our customers. Sorry.
Brilliant example. Thank you very much. I think that puts up, again, the focus on the sticking to core offerings only and not wavering anywhere else, because your marketing message is going to be more unified and more stronger if you stay only in one space.
Right. I just want to add on the pricing side as well, since you brought it up. So pricing, like I initially mentioned, it is every region, you have to define your pricing strategy for every region, even whether it's product or even in services. A classic example, an Indian customer, you can't sell it at the same price as that you're selling a service to a US customer. You can get a lot more value from a US customer. So you need to figure it out. And sometimes you don't have a ready answer. We all know the standard rate cards, but when you're delivering projects, you have to figure out I've had this question asked from a lot of our DISHA mentors as well. How do we price? Pricing in the services industry, in product, it's a little more difficult because you have to test the market and see what the customer is willing to buy for. In services industry, our prices are largely dependent on the effort that we are going to put to execute that project, right? It is directly a factor of that. So the more you optimize, another thing that you need to focus on, or your delivery organization needs to focus on, building accelerators. So you can optimize your effort. Another competition of yours may require 1,000 man days. Because of the accelerators that you have created, you may be able to do it at 500 man days. I'm just taking a random example, right? So you would be able to better price it. It's a very important aspect. Companies, larger companies focus on that. Some of us in the smaller organizations don't focus on that. Make sure you're building accelerators to automate a lot of things. And again, I'm going to go back to the AI language that we've been hearing from Ganesh and Akash. There's a lot of opportunity to use that in our own service delivery capabilities to improve it so that we can become much more price effective.
So let's jump onto the more tricky aspect of the business. I'm a single founder. I get pulled into multiple directions, very operationally involved. What to do? I can't even find time to think about growth. So how to attract the right talent to build my leadership, and any ideas?
Well, I think that's the biggest challenge for all entrepreneurs, that you're able to build a product or a service, you're able to get some customers, but building an organization going from a founder-driven organization where he's taking care of a lot of things himself to building an organization where you have managers and senior people who can take responsibilities is not a straightforward jump. It requires getting the right kind of person, trusting him, and then letting go is a very difficult challenge. But it has to be done if you have to grow. And I think one other thing which you should do is keep on getting younger people and train them, and you can keep on offloading more and more things to them because they have worked with you, you know what their strengths are, rather than expecting you to hire the best person who will fit in and who will be ready-made talent. You may not get very easily, especially if you're a small company. Hiring is also a challenge. You don't have a brand name, etc. So, very often you have to build people within who maybe 2-3 years will take to come up to that level. But that might be a better choice.
All right. So I'll just, since we have, and we constantly talk to companies of all sizes, right? So I'll, the mantra that I have is that depending on the size of your organization, you need to start building your leadership. When is the right time? And I again go back to that, up to 1 million, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. And I don't want to talk about beyond 100 at this stage. But up to $1 million, as a founder, you should be able to run, get team, get business from your network and run it. You don't need to worry about leadership. But when you're going from 1 to 10, as a founder, you want to focus on sales and meeting clients and getting business and have at least get your first delivery leader in your organization. When you go beyond 10, you need to put a proper leadership structure because extremely important. Going from 10 to 100 is creating an engine. Up to 10, even if you don't have a well-oiled engine, it's okay because you will somehow create. Because once you go beyond 10, it's about hiring talent. It is about having an HR leadership. It is about having an operations leader, having a delivery leader, having a sales leader. So as founders, we need to know when do we increase our leadership team, and we also need to bring in the right set of leaders. And I know from my discussions with Avinash, he's had to go through that journey and he's had to hire leaders as well. Another point, and I think I want you to talk 2 minutes about your own experience, but I think that timing is very important when you bring in the leaders, and as founders, you have to step back and figure out what you're going to focus on.
I'll actually go back to the inflection point ideology that Ganesh started his presentation with. So in the entrepreneurial journey also you have an inflection point. The first inflection point is to let go, to have people run the show, to hire professionals to replace your own job, to replace your own function within the organization. Because after, as Pravin said, after a level, you have to go out and be external facing. So business has internal functions and external functions. Sales is an external function. Attracting talent is an external function. Raising funds is an external function. You have to go out and do that. In order to run the show internally, you have to hire professionals, and that is where there is a lot of discomfort with founders to let go of the control of the business. Now, believe that your entity is much larger than yourself. Yes. And it needs more capable hands to run the show. You are the ones who have started out the journey. You are the ones who have to go out and grow the business. Even if you are from an engineering background, doesn't matter, you have to go and do the sales. You are the ones who can talk to your customers with the utmost conviction about delivering the work. We were talking about it, services business or product business is all about creating trust. When you're a smaller company, you have to win the trust of your customers and your buyers and even your talent people who are looking to join you. So you are the ones who can emote the highest amount of trust and conviction for your business. So you have to be on the front, you have to be leading it and taking it from there. The second point on the leadership and attracting leadership is you can actually think of profit sharing, you can think of revenue sharing, you can think of ESOPs. These are the things which will create a long-term value for your leaders, and they will also have skin in the game. So these are some of the tactics that you can apply. So there is another point about investments and funding. So Pravin, what would you want to talk about?
Right. So yeah, there was a couple of questions on the investment side, and I think as services companies, our biggest we need money for two. As you start growing, you need for two things. One is sales. Sales costs get quite expensive, especially if you're looking at foreign markets, and because you want to be on the ground there. At least you have to have a face on the ground. The trust factor does not get built. For smaller projects you can, but you want large deals. People have been talking about how do I get bigger deals, $100K, $1 million, $500,000 deals. You have to get on the ground. You need money for that. The second most important thing is the money that you need for having cash flows to pay salaries, because it's very unlike, so startup companies which develop products is very different. They have a core team that develops a product. Once a product development is done, cash flow is not an issue. They require money only for sales. But in services, you need, as you grow, you want to add another 100 people, you have to think about the cash flows to ramp up that team and focus on the sales side, right? So getting investments, you have to think on along both lines. Sometimes some people, because many of us have worked in salaried jobs and then become an entrepreneur, we don't understand the cash flow business because somebody else was handling that. The finance organizations were handling that before. But you have to start thinking that. So investment is needed for both aspects. Giving equity based, so there are organizations who will fund it. So you have to learn to figure out how to share, how to let go of, dilute your equity and take money. You can also get it on the, you can also take debt. I mean, you can take loans from the banks as well. But there are multiple ways, but you have to figure out how much investment you need from both perspectives when you take those decisions. So there are people who will invest, but you need it for both.
And I think, the investment climate is changing in India quite a bit. A lot of people have seen that early stage investors have made huge profits from their investments. And there is now and you'll have to decide whether you take your, from angel investors, there are organized, people, Indian Angel Network and so many other networks which are there, which will invest early days, or these days family offices are coming up. VCs come much later on because their ticket size is much bigger, but family offices are very keen to invest in companies, but how to reach out to them is one challenge. And I think there are, I have come across several boutique investment bankers, one or two people team who will get you in touch with a lot of investment opportunities. So there are ways, I think there is, opportunities to get money is not a challenge. Of course, you have to figure out how much money to raise, from whom to raise, and what is your pitch, because investors look at it from a very different perspective, right? The biggest challenge is, when will I get an exit, right? The company may be doing well. Does it become a lifestyle kind of a company which will go on, but you don't get an exit? So that is one thing which you'll have to think of, because all the investors, like I am an investor in several companies, and I know that getting a exit is going to be a key challenge. And most investors try to figure out what will be your exit opportunities. So if you're trying to raise money, do keep that in mind.
Right. One last thing that we got several queries on as to, my business is extremely people dependent. How do I make it process dependent? How do I think of standard operating procedures? How do I think of processes, and how do I implement it? Because I'm still a small company. I don't know what to do with that. So what is your take on processes and SOPs? And
I think it's very important. Initially you'll just get into very seat of the pants kind of doing things. But these days, I think a lot of your processes, there are software which are available. For example, if you want to run a CRM, you have very good software which are available, low cost and pay as you go kind of a thing. So those are the ways that you can start, using those software to start implementing those processes. So I think there are a lot of tools available which can help you implement the processes much more effectively.
No, I think you said it all. The CRMs are a very important tool, but it's also about at what stage of your business growth that you're going to invest in tools and software, because sometimes you want to be agile. You bring in these processes in a very small organization, less than 1 million. You don't want to bring in too many tools. You can manage it without tools. But getting the processes is very important. Once you cross the $1 million mark, you need to start thinking, at least initially with a CRM tool, to track all your leads and opportunities. Very important. You have to start there. And then from an business operations perspective, resource management, and there are a lot of other tools available for our industry. But very important. If you don't bring those in, you will not be able to, like I said, your objective is to optimize your cost and become competitive in the marketplace. And some of these tools help you with the visibility of where you're spending. The problem is when we run it without tools or without anything, we don't get the indicators as to where is the money getting spent, how many resources are on bench. We start billing partially resources into multiple projects. We don't really know where the costs are going. So these tools help you with that, and that eventually helps you in figuring out how to optimize that cost and make it more effective.
Definitely. And let me also tell you all over again, we have this DISHA program that continues year round with NASSCOM. You can apply, and there are two levels. One is a one-on-one mentorship. The second is one-to-many. You can apply to either one of them, and we'll be happy to help in many ways than just one-on-one. There's just few 30 minutes of discussion like this. But as I said, there are more deeper interactions that are possible if you apply to DISHA program. And each one of us is available to help you in any ways. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to help.
And this discussion was very generic, yes, right? But in the DISHA program, all the discussions is about your business, about the challenges which you are facing, and what ideas or thoughts or what from our experience, what we can bring in. So it is over a 3-month period, where people are spending time about understanding your business, understanding the people, understanding the challenges, and what inputs or guidance you can give. So I think mentoring is a very important issue, very important aspect which you should not ignore, because most startups, they don't know whom to ask. They have very limited management bandwidth. And where do you ask? Who do you bounce off your thoughts with? So that's where mentoring is very critical, which has to be specific to your business.
Yeah, while Avinash mentioned it's one-on-one, it's actually you get 3 mentors in each session.
Yes.
So those 3 mentors stay throughout they're the same 3 people for the whole 3-month period. But there are 3 mentors, so your challenges and all the points that you're discussing, you're getting feedback from 3 different individuals, leaders who have had different types of experiences. So you're bouncing off from 3 different people. You will not get that anywhere else. So I think this is a wonderful program. You guys should look at, if you are struggling and you need questions answered, this is a wonderful program to participate in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the awesome discussion. I would like to call upon Meghna Ahuja from Moritat to felicitate our esteemed panelists on the stage.